Hey there, Karolis90. See you have an updated log here. Let's go ahead and take a look. So, pulling up your log, now that you have the debug notch, or debug mode equals notch, now we can see the full quad noise. Looking at this quite a bit, it looks like what I would, just to kind of cut to the chase, is if you do a spectrograph on your pitch axis is where you get the twitch. It looks like you have a decent amount of low end motor noise. So why do I say that? This is my quad, which I have two bent shafts on the right hand side. So there's a decent amount of motor noise here, and this is probably one bent shaft and this is probably the other. I'm not sure, but I have the static notches turned off, so it's just the dynamic notch. And then all this is the dynamic notch, and then the two low pass filters for the gyro low pass and the D-term low pass, which is honestly not relevant really. But you can see down here, this is the debug mode equal to notch, and I don't have as much low end motor noise here, so yours has that. So what I would recommend doing is a couple things. One, in your black box log, I would try to center your static notch 2 over this noise. Same thing with your D. It looks like your D term pretty much is centered. But that's actually a side issue, so really don't worry about the D term notch. Try to center the static notch, so change this from 200 up to around, I don't know, I would just set it at 260. It looks like your peak's 257, but your D term's at 260, so set this the same, and then leave it go. The other thing I would do is pop into Betaflight and try to rev up your motors and see what motor is causing the issue. So hold on a second. So what we would do is in Betaflight, turn on, take off your props obviously, set this to accelerometer, obviously make sure your props are off. Go on to one of these throttle indicators, and then you can use your keyboard keys, your up and down arrow, to move the throttle slowly up through its range. If you have a 3S battery, I would probably do it on the 3S. What can happen is you don't want to leave this at the very high end for a long period of time. It can burn an ESC because there's no resistance against the motor, or it can just cause problems. I've never had it happen to me, but this is advice I've seen on the internet. So what I usually do is try to do it on a 3S instead of a 4S. So if you want to click on the item and then use your arrow key, because if you use your arrow key and just hold it down, it will slowly just continue to increase in speed. And what you can do here is make sure to hit reset before you start it. And if these numbers get anywhere, the advice is above 0.02. But I would say if they get anywhere above like 0.04 or 0.05, even then 0.04, 0.05, you have a decently noisy motor, like bearings or off balance or something. Honestly, when I do it, I don't have my quad hooked up here, but when I do it, my bad motor gets to 0.17, 0.12. So you can kind of see which, and this is the, oh gosh, I forget now. I think this is the roll, pitch, and yaw axis. I have to look again. You can look by just moving your quad left, right, and whatnot in the sensors tab. So yeah, if you go to the sensors tab here, you can see which is X, Y, and Z. I'm pretty sure that's what it was, but so take a look at that and see if you can determine, like, hey, is one of these motor bearings just a little rough, and that's what's causing that vibration. Other than that, so I would try to target that in motor noise, I guess, first, and see if you have a motor that's a little noisy that's causing that low end noise. To me, it seemed like that was the kind of the root of where the jitters are happening. It's because of this low end noise. Let me show you that for a second. Oh, before I get off of this, I thought it was important to note that spectrograph was that was on your second log, and that was only from this point here to this point, so it wasn't even in your punch out. So if I would look at the full range of it, it's even worse. The reason I narrowed it down is because I was when you're comparing it against another log, which I have this log here is very short, and it has a bunch of punch outs, but you want to try to have the same amount of flight time and the same maneuvers. You can't have one quad where you're doing flips, rolls, and all kinds of stuff, and then another one where you're just doing a hover, and compare the spectrographs like they're apples and apples. They're just a general gist. So you have to have kind of the same. So that's what I was trying to do there. This is not a very long log, but it has some punches a little bit and then some hovering. And you can see it's only 35 seconds. Well, that just gives you the amount of data. If there's more time, you have a more dense spectrograph here. Whereas yours, it's a much longer log, 3 minutes and 36 seconds, but I narrowed it down to just and I haven't looked at the exact timing interval, but it doesn't have any spikes in it or whatnot, or punches. So anyways, let's look at one of these twitches here. So I've zoomed in on one of the twitches. I have it, zoomed in pretty good so it doesn't look so dramatic, but you can see here's one of your yaw twitches. And if I zoom in on that and we just isolate it, the motor noise or the spectrum analysis to right before the twitch occurs, this is kind of what I was seeing. So we're just looking at this little bit of area, and all the lines look fairly smooth because first of all I have smoothing turned on. So let me turn that off. And then we're zoomed way out. That's really the reasoning. So if I look, I'm not so much interested, we can look at the pitch access here and look at the noise on the pitch, and you can see it's fairly spread across. This is unfiltered, completely unfiltered. And then if we look at the gyro after the filtering, you can see after the low pass filter it addresses the noise, but we still have this noise up here. And my speculation is that at some point, we have a higher spike here, but at some point this low end noise, right down around 0, 1, 2, 10 hertz, things of that nature, is actually lower than this bass noise. So the quad thinks that this is the bass noise motion and is following that, and that causes a twitch. Like it actually comes up here and uses one of these pieces of information for motion and detects that as motion. So that's what's causing the twitch, and it's just an instantaneous, just one nanosecond of time, and then that's why it twitches out and goes back. So that's my guess. Kind of going back to trying to look at that motor noise. Other things to look at are, do you have any capacitors on your ESCs? Could be electrical noise, but that should be consistent throughout. Like you just have rough noise across the whole quad, not a specific twitch. So that's what's leading me away from there. If you don't have your flight controller soft mounted, I would go ahead and do that as well. I get soft mounts from, what are they? Ready-made RC. They work pretty well, but you can get them from Banggood and other things. So if you don't have your flight controller soft mounted, I would definitely do that. At the center of that static notch, there's some other, I'm trying to stay away from trying to soft filter it to death because it adds latency. We really want to try to address the noise at the source. You can do soft filtering, but it just adds latency. So let me know what your thoughts are with that. Sorry it took a little bit of time to get back to you. Hey there. So I wanted to add this at the end here. So this is just looking at your notch, debug mode, then your gyro, and zooming all the way out. So this is your trace. And you can see the thickness of the lines there. So for comparison purposes, this is my trace, debug mode notch, and zoomed all the way out. So you can see the lines are not nearly as thick, and this is with a bent motor shaft. This is another gentleman's trace, and he had some vibrations in his quad, but it was linked to, and you can see it here, it looks like he added a capacitance to his quad by adding capacitors, and it appears that this was prior to doing that. See this vibration here? That was what he was experienced from electrical noise. It just kept jittering out throughout the whole quad, and it was causing jello in his camera. But you can see the amount of just raw noise is much less from his motors. He really just had this issue with capacitance. So again, coming back to, your quad's a little noisy with vibrations from the motor somehow, somewhere, some way. Finding out where those are coming from, addressing it directly, and/or soft mounting your flight controller is the route I would go. Thanks, and I hope this helps.